Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are jumping into a story of intense family drama, shocking betrayal, and a hidden promise that ends up shaping the course of history, all tucked away in a few key chapters of Genesis. Specifically, we're diving into chapters 35 through 37. And trust me, these 3 chapters set the stage for one of the most famous and epic stories ever told. So, how can all of that profound loss, a bitter family rivalry, and a teenager's wild dreams actually combine to change the world? Well, the answer lies right here in this incredible narrative. So, our story kicks off with the patriarch Jacob. And for him, we're really nearing the end of his personal journey, and it's a period marked by sorrow and loss. Okay, so to get the full picture, you've got to remember it's been 30 long years since Jacob first fled from his brother Esau and had that life-changing vision at Bethel. After all that time, all the family drama, God finally tells him, it's time. Go back to where it all started. But before they can even pack their bags, Jacob lays down the law. He tells his whole family it's time for a spiritual clean-out. They have to get rid of all their foreign gods, surrender any household idols, yeah, probably the ones Rachel stole, and even give up earrings they wore as magical charms. But this homecoming isn't some happy celebration. It's just marked by one heartbreaking loss after another. First, his childhood nurse, Deborah, passes away. Then, his absolute favorite wife, Rachel, dies tragically during childbirth. And finally, his elderly father, Isaac, dies too. It is just a season of profound grief, truly the end of an era for this family. And if that wasn't bad enough, the family's internal decay just explodes. Jacob's firstborn son, Reuben, does something utterly unthinkable. He sleeps with his father's concubine, Bilhah. It's this incredibly shameful act, a profound betrayal that just shows you how deeply broken this family has become. So, with Jacob's family in absolute turmoil, the story does something really interesting. It hits pause and takes a detour to check in on the other brother, the one Jacob cheated and fled from all those years ago, Esau. And we get a little background on Esau, who you'll remember is also known as Edom. That name means red, and it's a callback, right? It connects to his red appearance at birth, and of course that infamous bowl of red stew he traded his birthright for. Now, you might see this list of names and think, okay, a genealogy, why does this matter? But this is absolutely crucial. First, it reminds us the Edomites and Israelites are family. Second, it shows that Esau's descendants settled their own land, which confirms that Canaan is reserved for Jacob's line. And finally, it fulfills that prophecy from way back that Esau too would become a great nation. And this sets up an absolutely staggering contrast. I mean, just look at this. On one side, you've got Esau's family. They are settled, powerful, and already have kings and chiefs. They're a monarchy. And then there's Jacob's family, the supposed chosen line. They're nomads, a fractured and dysfunctional mess, and we know that slavery in Egypt is waiting right around the corner. It really forces you to ask, how on earth is God's promise going to come true through them? And that question leads us right to the next generation, where the family's entire fate seems to hinge on one person, Jacob's favorite son, Joseph. At 17, Joseph is the golden child. He's the son of Jacob's old age, born to his beloved Rachel. And Jacob doesn't hide his favoritism at all, which, of course, just fuels his brother's hatred. It also doesn't help that Joseph has a habit of reporting on his brother's misdeeds. And then he starts having these dreams, and he makes the, let's say, questionable decision to share them. He goes, "Hey guys, listen to this. We were all out in the field, and suddenly my sheaf of grain stood up, and all of your sheaves bowed down to mine." Yeah, you can imagine how well that went over. They see it as pure arrogance. But he doesn't stop there. He has another dream. "Listen," he says, "this time I saw the sun, the moon, and 11 stars all bowing down to me." Now this one is so over the top that even his father Jacob rebukes him for it, but the text says Jacob kept the matter in mind.
Well, all that simmering jealousy is about to boil over into a cold-blooded plot. And it all comes to a head when Jacob sends Joseph out to check on his brothers while they're tending the flocks miles away from home.
They see him coming from far off, probably spotting that fancy coat his dad gave him, and they just sneer, "Here comes the dreamer." And in that moment, years of pent-up hatred crystallize into a plan. Let's kill him and dump his body in a pit. But one of the brothers, Judah, suggests a different plan. Instead of murder, why not profit? So for 20 shekels of silver, the price of a slave, they sell their own flesh and blood to a passing caravan of traders.
Now, they have to cover their tracks. So they come up with this incredibly cruel, methodical deception. They kill a goat, take that special coat they ripped off Joseph, and drench it in blood. Then they take it to their dad and ask, with false innocence, "We found this. Is this your son's coat?"
So the brothers return home, their terrible secret safe, leaving their father to believe the worst. They have no idea at all, that their act of betrayal has just set a much, much larger plan into motion.
And Jacob, seeing the bloody coat, draws the only conclusion he can. He's convinced a wild animal has torn his son to pieces, and he is just consumed by a grief that will last for years. But here is the pivot point of the whole story. While Jacob grieves for a son he thinks is dead, Joseph is taken down to Egypt and sold to Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's highest-ranking officials. His story is far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. Which leaves us with a really powerful question. When a story seems to end in absolute disaster, could it actually be the start of a different one? Because this horrible betrayal, this moment that looked like the end, was actually the first step toward fulfilling the very dreams his brothers despised. It's a stunning reminder that sometimes the most painful chapters of our lives might just be setting the stage for a purpose we can't yet see.